Hello and welcome. In this video I'm going to show you how to create a bot that automatically answers emails which ask for details of inventory items. To create this bot I'm going to use OfficeScript and Power Automate. Now OfficeScript is a new scripting language for Excel which is currently in preview mode for Excel Online. So Power Automate is a tool that allows different applications to interact with each other. And using these together opens up a whole world of possibilities of what you can do with Excel. If you like this video, then please click on the like button, and if you'd like to get notified of my upcoming videos, then please click on the subscribe button and the bell icon beside it. Make sure to download the source code and the workbook for this video in the description below. Now let's get started with the first thing that we're going to do, and that is look at the task that we're going to automate. So let's have a look at the job that we want to complete in this video. So imagine we have an inventory with a list of items like this. So they've all got their ID, the product name, the unit price and the quantity in stock. And what happens is many times every day we get an email like this. And what the email does is it asks us basically to give details on inventory items based on their ID. So what we've got to do is we've got to manually copy these, and then we've got to find them in our inventory. And once we find them in our inventory, what we do then is we copy them to a result table like this. And then we're going to save the table as a PDF, and then we're going to reply to the email. And you can see this is what the PDF looks like. We'll have a reply and the PDF will look like this. So it's a pretty simple task to do manually, not like huge, but imagine you have to do this 50 to 100 times a day. So at that stage it can get quite time consuming. So we're going to look at how to automate this. So the first thing we want to do is to see the steps that we're going to have to complete. As with any task we get to do, the first thing that we want to do is we want to break down our task into a series of steps. So we're going to look at Power Automate. Now Power Automate is what allows us to use many different applications and put them together in a workflow like you can see on the screen. So this is what our finished one will look like. So what we want to do is we want to find out when a new email arrives based on some criteria. We want to run the script that creates the table. We copy the file to a new Excel file. We run a script to delete the extra worksheet, and then we convert the file to a PDF. And after we've converted it to a PDF file, what we want to do is we want to reply to the same email and attach that PDF file. So these are the steps we will use to create our application. As we have seen, we're going to use Power Automate along with OfficeScript to create the application. Now Power Automate is a Microsoft Online tool that allows us to create automated workflows between different applications or services. We can use it to connect to Gmail and tell us when an email with a specific criteria has arrived. And we can then use part of that email in a later stage in the workflow. The first thing we're going to do is create a new workflow and then add a step to detect when an email with an inventory query has been received. To create a Power Automate workflow, we go to Power Automate and click New at the top. We have many options, but we're going to select Automated from blank. We then add the flow name. We can create the trigger here, but I'm just going to click on Skip and we'll create the trigger at the next stage. After we enter the flow, it asks us to pick the trigger and we're going to select Gmail as our trigger. Our workflow will automatically run when we receive an email with the criteria that we specify. We've selected when a new email arrives as the trigger. Note the first time you use a service like Gmail, you will have to set it up by signing in, but that is pretty straightforward. We click on Advanced Options and here we will add our criteria. The criteria is that the subject has the text Check Inventory. We can add more if we like, but I'm going to keep it simple for the moment. The next thing we're going to do is run an OfficeScript when the email arrives. So we click on New Step to add our first action. So we select Run Script as our action, and you can see this is Excel Online. It's written just below the OfficeScript text. When we select Run Script, you will see that we have options to fill in. So before we fill in these options, we have to go ahead and create our OfficeScript. A quick pause to tell you about the Excel VBA Handbook course. Are you struggling to build VBA applications? Do you find it difficult to get good information on how to create real-world VBA code? Is it a struggle every time you try to create a VBA application, no matter how simple it is? Well, the Excel VBA Handbook course teach us how to build real-world Excel VBA applications from scratch. Unlike most courses, you won't be overwhelmed with information and left to figure out how to put it all together. Instead, you'll be taken step by step through 10 Excel VBA applications with every concept explained. Once you start working through VBA applications, you'll be amazed how quickly your VBA skills increase. So check out the VBA Handbook course at the excelvbahandbook.com, and the link can also be found in the description below the video. To create the Office script, we go to Excel Online and click on the Automate tab. At this time, August 2020, Office scripts are only available in preview mode for those with E3 or E5 Office subscriptions. So we click on New Script to create the new Office script. Now we're going to rename our new script by clicking on the script and then entering the name. We're going to use the body of the email to get the inventory ID numbers. So therefore we're going to pass the body as a parameter from Power Automate to this script. So to achieve this, we have to add the body parameter to our script. Now when we are writing and testing our Office script, we don't want to have to run the Power Automate sequence each time to test it, as this is very time consuming. So instead we'll create a simple main function and call a real main function from this one. And this means we can run the script from here and we can test different body text to see if it works correctly. So when we're finished writing and testing the script, we can then make this our main function. We pass the body text to the function like this. Now that we have a simple piece of code written, we want to test it and make sure that it works correctly. And we do this by writing out the body text to the console window. So this is the equivalent to the immediate window in VBA. So when we run the code, we can see what happens, and you can see that the text was written out to the console window at the bottom of the screen. So now we know it's working, let's start writing the main code. The first thing that we want to do is get the worksheets and store them in a variable. So we're going to be reading data from the inventory worksheet and writing the final data to a table in the result worksheet. Now we use the getWorksheet function of the workbook to get the worksheet. And we use the worksheet name to identify the worksheet that we want. So it's the very same again for using sheet result. We just use sheet result as the variable and then result as the name we're giving to the getWorksheet function. Now you can see that we have the result table which already has data. Now each time the script runs, we want to remove any existing data from this table. So we first of all assign a variable to the table, and then to get the table we use the getTable function of the worksheet and supply the table name. So it's quite similar to how we get the worksheet using getWorksheet function. So the next thing we do is get the number of data rows in the table. So we first of all want to get the range of the data in the table, and we use the kind of long named function getRange between header and total. So this is the equivalent to the table data body range function in VBA. And once we do this, we then use getRowCount of this range to give us back the number of rows in the range. And once we have the number of rows, we can use the number of rows in the deleteRowsAt function to delete the specific number of rows from a given position in the table. So this is a really nice addition to table functionality, as there isn't an equivalent function in VBA. So for this function, the starting row is 0 because this is what everything starts with in Office scripts. They start at 0 rather than 1. And row count is the number of rows we want to delete. So this is a good point to save the script and then run it and see what happens. So we click on run and you can see that the data has been removed from the table. So the code is working correctly at this point. One problem with deleteRowsAt is that it will fail if the table is already empty. Now we'll add the code to handle this later, as I don't want to make the code too complex looking at this point. So the next thing we're going to do is read the data from the inventory worksheet to an array. So we place it in an array because the code runs faster when we manipulate data from an array rather than directly from the worksheet. So we use the getRange function of the worksheet, and this will get us the range. So the range is just going to be one cell. We then use the getSurroundingRegion function, and this will return the region that the data is part of. So in other words, it will return all the data that surrounds this range until it meets blank rows or blank columns. And once we have the range of data, we then use getValues, and this returns the array of values from that range. So after we get the values, we're going to write the array to the console window. So this will ensure that our script is correct at this point and doing what it's supposed to do. So we then save this script, and once the script has saved, we'll go ahead and run it. So you can see that the inventory data array appears in the console window. So we can click on the arrows or the triangles to the left of the array, and we can look into the data and see exactly what data is in our array. So as you can see, we've got the data back that we were expecting. Our next step is to read the inventory numbers from the body of the email. Remember that this script takes the body as a parameter. So to read the inventory numbers, we're going to use regular expressions. So regular expressions are available in most programming languages, and they allow us to search in text for particular patterns. So this regular expression is going to look for a pattern of ABC-INV- followed by 4 numbers. And so that's what this means. And we're also going to add the global flag, which is G, and this simply means to find all occurrences. So how we run the regular expression in Office scripts is using a while loop. Each time the while loop will return the next number or next item that it finds, and then we work on this within the while loop. So when there's no more numbers that are found, the loop will then end. So we're essentially saying every time the regular expression runs, which is executes, EXEC, when that executes on the body, when nothing is found, it will end. Now each time it gives us back the product ID, and we're going to write out the product ID this time just to see that it's finding our number. So we ran the code, you can see that the output shows that it found the inventory numbers in our body. Now that we know the regular expression is working correctly, we want to filter the inventory array by the inventory number and then add the data for the number to the result table. So we're going to use the filter function on the array to filter by the inventory number. So the filter function simply takes one item of the array as the parameter. So our array is made up of rows. So in this case, the item is a row. And then we say from that row, we want to check 0, which is the first column, and we want to check if it matches to the current product ID. And we put the result of this in an array. So item row is an array, but it's just an array of one item because we're just going to find one item in the inventory list each time. Now we're going to write out the item row to the console window, just again to make sure that our code is working. So you can see the list of inventory items on the left. So these are unique IDs, so that means we're only going to get one in our array each time. So we've run the code and you can see the product array. So if you look in it, you can see it returned 0002, the business laptop, and it also returned the second one, which we were expecting. So far our code seems to be working fine. So now what we want to do is we want to write to the table. And to add an item to the table, we use the add row function, and the -1 parameter simply adds it to the end. And item row 0 is simply the first row in the array, but our array only has one. This item row array only has one item anyway. So when we run this script, you'll see that it wrote out the 2 items. So the 2 items from the body were written to our table. And so 0002 and the same one 9 for the printer office. So now let's update this code to handle the error, as I said earlier on. We have a try and catch section. So what it simply means is that if there's an error, the error will jump to the catch section and we can handle it there if we want. Now, we don't really want to do anything with the error, but if we don't handle it, what happens is the script will just stop running. But we can show how we would handle it by just putting in this code and just writing a message to the console log if there is an empty row. So this will allow us to test if it's working correctly. So we delete all the items in the table. So we just right click and delete the table rows so the table is empty. So when we run the code this time, we should get no row written to our console window. So you can see in the output window that it wrote no row because there was no items in it when it tried to delete. And of course it wrote out the items again, so our business laptop and our printer office. So now that our script is good to go, we will make this function our main function and delete the temporary main function that we were using to run this script. And now that our main script is ready, we need to create a simple second script, and this is simply to delete the inventory tab when we copy this workbook to another one. As I said, this script is going to be very simple. We are going to get the inventory worksheet and then we're going to delete it. So again, we use let and we use inventory sheet, and we're going to use get worksheet to get us the worksheet. So in Power Automate, we'll copy the main workbook to another workbook, and then this is the workbook that will run this script on. Because before we send it, we want to delete the inventory worksheet. Now deleting the worksheet is simple once we get it. We just call the delete function. So that's our script written. All we have to do is rename it and then save it. Now that we have the scripts created, we're going to add the rest of the steps to our Power Automate workflow. We click on Next Step and we select Run Script. When the Run Script step appears, we have to fill in the parameters. So we select OneDrive for Business as the location, and we select the document library to be OneDrive. And next we select the workbook. So when the script runs, this is the workbook that is passed as the workbook parameter to the script. So we're selecting PA Inventory, which is the workbook we've been using. We then select the script that we're going to run, and this is the script that we've just created. And once we add this, Power Automate will add the script parameters as fields. So we can see that body is added here. So the really powerful part of Power Automate is that we can add parameters from previous steps. So what we do is we select Add Dynamic to do this. So using the dynamic content, we can select any part of the email that we want. And in our case, we're going to select the body as the parameter. Now once everything is done, we save the script, and we can now test the flow at this point to see if it works. We create an email with check inventory in its title, and the beauty of the test is that we don't have to test in real time. We can use an existing email in our account for this test. So we click on test and then select use data from Gmail, and then click save and test. So you can see the flow running and how long it took each step to run as it is running. So now the test works, we are going to try a live test by sending an email. So we add some new inventory IDs to the email, and then what we're going to do is we're going to click send and see if our workflow runs. So this will help us see if it runs in real time. So if we go back to the workflow, we can see a list of our run history at the bottom of the screen. And we can then click on the date, and that will bring us into the workflow. So we can see now the workflow is completed. The script took 21 seconds to run. And when we go back to the main screen, we can see the IDs from the email have been written to the result table. So we know that when the email is sent, it will actually write out the correct data. It will take the IDs from the inventory table and write out the correct rows to our result table. So the main part of our Power Automate flow is working correctly. So now we want to add our new steps to our Power workflow. What we're going to do is copy the file next. We've updated our current file, and what we want to do then is copy that file, and we're going to delete the inventory tab and then send it to the user. So the first step to copy the file is we find the file on our OneDrive. And then the second parameter is the destination file. And that's just going to be the name of the file in the same path as the file that we're copying. So this will create a new file. And we're going to overwrite this because every time we run this flow, we want to overwrite that file. And we save this step. So once we have the new file, what we want to do is we want to delete the inventory tab. And we do this using the script that we created earlier. So again, we select the same location and document library parameters as before, OneDrive for Business and OneDrive. And then we're going to select the file, but in this case we're not going to select the file name, we're going to select the file ID from the previous step. So this is from the copy file step. And the script we want to run is the one that we created earlier, so the delete one. So OS bot delete. So we save this step and we add our next step. So our next step now, we have the workbook in the format we want, and we just want to convert that to a PDF. So we select convert file, and this is part of OneDrive for Business. And all we need for this again is the file ID and the target type, which is going to be PDF. So when we click there, it brings up the dynamic content, and we can select the file ID from this. So again, the file ID from the previous step. And so we've done everything we need with the file. All we want to do now is to reply to the email with this new file as the attachment. So we select our Gmail reply. You can see reply to email version 2. And then we've all these different parameters we can fill in. So just basically like a standard email. So the message ID we get from the previous step. So this is the email we got had an ID, and we're going to use that ID to reply. So very, very nice, very easy to do this. So in the body, we can just put some text that we want. Please find the product details attached. And then for the attachment name, we take the file name from the previous step. And from the attachment content, we take the file content from the previous step. So you see, it's very, very easy to do. So once we've all this done, we'll save our workflow. And then I'm going to test out that this works correctly. So we test by using data from Gmail. And so we can see the script as it runs. The new email took 1 second. And so on. And we can see that all the steps have completed. So we know that our flow now works because it's ran successfully. So to test this workflow, I'm going to use Yahoo Mail. So an old account I have. And I'm going to send an email from Yahoo Mail. And I'm going to see if I get a reply. So we put in the subject as check inventory. And then we put in our different inventory IDs that we want to get details of. And let's go ahead and send the email and see what happens. So you can see our email arrived. It says, please find product details attached. And at the bottom, it has the PDF file attached. So let's open the PDF file and see what we have. And you can see that we've got the numbers 2, 4, 6, and 8. So let's make this a small bit bigger. And you can see it returned all the details as we expected as a PDF file. So now we know that our flow is running correctly. So in this video, I showed how to create an OfficeScript bot that automatically looks for inventory IDs in an email and replies by finding those IDs, creating a PDF of the details and sending them back to the person who sent the email. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, please click on the like button and click on the subscribe button to get notified of my upcoming videos. Now, if you'd like some more free Excel VBA resources, then check out my website, excelmacromastery.com. There are major articles on all the major areas of Excel VBA. Each article has an easy to navigate table of contents, as well as a quick guide that allows you to easily find the syntax you need. And there's tons of coding examples that you can copy and use in your own macros. You'll also find techniques that are not available anywhere else. I also have a VBA tutorial, and in this tutorial there's lots of activities and solutions so that you can try them all for yourself, and it's all absolutely free. So that's all for me, and I hope to see you on my next video.